section 3.2 today, which is using different methods to graph a line. So what I'm going to do, first of all, is go through these steps that we're going to use if we're going to graph a line by plotting points. Okay? You're going to need 2 points to draw a line, right? 1 point to start with, and then another point to connect it to draw your line. Okay? So you have to have 2 points. So what we're going to do, what I'm going to do is show you the method and the function in the calculator that will do a lot of this for you. Okay? So the steps here, and I would write these down because these are the ones that you're going to use to draw your line by plotting points. The first thing you're going to want to do is solve your equation for y. And once we get these steps written down, then I'm going to walk you through several of these until we're comfortable. Okay? So you're going to solve for y, which means get the y by itself. The second step says put the equation into y equals on your calculator. Your y equals button on your TI 83 or 84 is the very top left button. It says y equals on it. If you push that, let me clear mine out. You'll have several different y equals. That's where you're going to put your equation into that. So for instance, if your equation is 3x plus 1, you would type in, get in your y equals 3. This button right here is your X button. Watch when I push this button right here. It'll give me an X. So 3x plus 1, so there, if I type in now, plus 1. So that's step 2 by putting your equation into the y equals on your calculator. The next thing you're going to do is see what that looks like on the graph. So your top right button says graph on it. So let's hit the graph button. That's what your equation is going to look like on the graph. That's the line. Now, you're going to have to get points off of this line to be able to plot them. So since I'm going to be plotting these, what you want to do is remember on the last lesson in 3.1, we created an XY table that gave us different points. For instance, we came up with 2 points that were on the line to graph them. Well, look what this function does. If you hit your second button and then hit the graph button again, your second button gets you up into mine is blue. Sometimes they're yellow or green, depending on your calculator. See that button up there? It says table. So since I hit second, it's going to get me up into the table. When I hit enter, look what it does. It makes this XY table for you so that you don't have to go through and do all that math by plugging in different numbers all the time. Okay, so it does the math for you. Then you can go up or down and just pick different points to plot. So for instance, if I was going to actually graph this 3x plus 1, I could choose this point, 0, 1, and this point, 1, 4. Plot those points and graph the line. If I was going to plot those points, there's my XY axis. So I went ahead and wrote those on the board. 0, 1, and 1, 4. So let's see if I plot this point. 0, 1. So remember, the first coordinate is your x coordinate, and it tells you how far to go, left or right. Since my x is 0 on this point, I don't go left or right at all. My y coordinate is positive 1. Y's tell you to go up or down. Since it's positive 1, I'm going to go up 1. Now I'll plot this second point, because remember, you have to have the second point. So I don't know if my line's going this way, or if it's steep or not steep until I get that second point to connect it to. So now I'm going to plot the point 1, 4, starting again from the origin. My x is positive 1, so I'll go to the right 1, but remember, you don't drop your point there. You have to do both directions before you drop your point. So to the right 1 for the x, and then up 4 from there. Up 1, 2, 3, 4. So since I've gone the x movement and the y movement, then I'll drop my point. So now that I have 2 points, that's when you draw that line. Okay? Let's look at number 1 in 3.2. It says, graph the equation by plotting points. The equation is y equals 1/2 x minus 2. Now, this one tells us part of the points that it wants us to graph. It says it wants the point 2 blank and 0 blank. So it tells us what it wants the x coordinates to be. We need to find the y's that go with them. So I'm going to write it out, but then I'm going to show you how you can even use your calculator on this one. So let's see, if I use the x to be 2, let's see, I would have y equals 1/2 times 2 minus 2, right? I just put the x that it wants x to be in for the x. Now, this, even though it's a fraction, look, this 2 just cancels that one. So now I'm just left with that 1, drop down the 1, minus 2. So what is y equal? 1 minus 2, which is -1. So when I plugged in this 2 for the x, what did it give me for the y that goes with it? -1. So I'm going to plot that point. Now, the second point, I'm going to start all over. This time I'm going to put a 0 in for the x to see what it gives me. So if I put a 0 in for x, I have y equals 1/2 times 0 minus 2. Here's why I like zeros. What's 1/2 times 0? Anything times 0 is 0. So this really just says, this all right here, 1/2 times 0 is 0 minus 2. So y equals 0 minus 2, which is -2. So when I plugged in 0, it gave me -2. Those are the 2 points it's going to ask you to plot on MathLab. Those 2 specific points. So let's look at what that's going to look like. So y equals 1/2 x x minus 2. Here's the 2 points I'm going to use. 2, negative 1, and 0, negative 2. So let's see, 2, negative 1. Let's plot that point. My x is positive 2, so I'll go to the right 2. I don't put my point there, right? I haven't done my y movement yet. My y movement is negative 1. So right 2, down 1. So there's the first point. Then my second point is at 0, negative 2. So since my x coordinate is 0, I don't go left or right at all, right? That's what the 0 is telling me to do. Don't go anywhere. My y is negative 2, so I don't go anywhere left or right. Y tells me up or down, so since it's negative 2, I'm going to go down 2 and then connect it. Let's try this one. I'm going to share my screen real quick and do this because I want you to see how you're going to graph in MATLAB. But before I do that, let's type this, y equals 1/2 x minus 2, using the calculator. So go to your y equals and clear it out. So again, y equals, clear it out. Type in your new equation. Okay, I like to put fractions in parentheses. So I'm going to do open parenthesis, 1. Now, to make the fraction bar, because I'm making 1/2, I hit divided by 2, close, so 1/2. Now remember, your X button is this one right here. So 1/2 X, and then minus 2. So 1/2 x minus 2. Let's graph it to see what it's going to look like in the end. And look, it looks just like my thing on the board. Now, remember how to find the points. You hit the second button, and then back up and hit the graph button again. That's going to give you your table. Now, look, remember it told me the specific points it wanted me to use. It said I want to use the point where the x is 2, and I want to use the point where the x is 0. That's what I did all this math right here to figure that out. But if I use that table function, let's see, the first point it wanted to know where x is 2. So look, I'm just going to make my cursor go down. So there's where the x is 2. Look at the y that goes with it. Negative 1, which is what I found. But I had to go the long route, right? I had to go through and plug it all in and maybe make a mistake. If you plug it into your calculator, it's going to give you the points. 2, negative 1. What's the other x it wanted me to use? That 0. So go up to where your x is 0. And look, it did the math for you. The y that goes with that is negative 2, which is what I got, but I had to go through all this process to get that. If you put it in y equals and then hit second table, it'll come up with those for you. So I'm going to go and share my screen real quick, and I'm going to show you, because I want to show you. I want to show you that. Stop that. Okay. I'm going to go to your class. Oh, not course content. I go to My MATLAB student links. My MATLAB Math All Assignments. To get to your assignments, let's see. I am on 3.2. And I'm going to work number 1. And it looks like I've already worked it once, so this is a good thing to also point out. Remember, even if you've worked a problem once and you've gotten your green check, but you say, you know what, I need to practice that. I need to practice more plotting points on my math lab. You can always come down here to the right and click similar question, and it's just going to give you a new problem with a similar question. And you can work it to get more practice. So this one I'm going to type, my problem is 1/3 x minus 1. So I'm going to go in my calculator, clear it out, type in that 1/3 x minus 1. So I'm going to do open parentheses, 1 divided by 3, close, x, and then minus 1, minus 1. Now, I always, even though you don't really have to, I always hit the graph button just so I get a glimpse at what my graph in a little bit is going to look like. Now, looking at your screen, what points does it want me to use? It says complete the ordered pairs. So it wants me to use this first point where the x is 3. So here's where you would go to second table, and then go down until the x is 3. Well, there's where x is 3. Look at the y that goes with it. The y that goes with it is 0. So I don't have to do that. I just go ahead and trust my calculator that it's done the math for me. So there's the first point. The second point, look, is 0 blank. So now I'm going to go back to this table and find out where the x is 0. So looks like I need to scroll back up to where the x is 0 to see the y that goes with it, which is -1. So again, it does that math for me. There's -1. Check your answer. Nice work. Now, here's where we need to practice our graphing. So we're going to click over here to enlarge graph. Now, if you look in this yellow rectangle, it gives you the instructions of your step-by-step. It says click the graph, choose a tool in the palette. So here's my palette. You're always going to be clicking this line, okay? If you hover over it, it's going to call it a line tool. Everything that we're going to be graphing here is going to be lines. So we need to tell MathLab that. We're going to graph a line. Now, look at what my yellow box says. Click the graph to plot the first point on your line. Come back over here. What was our first point? 3, 0. So I need to come over here. What does 3, 0 mean to do? Go to the right, 1, 2, 3 for x. Then my y coordinate was 0, which means I don't go up anywhere up or down from there. And go look at the top. Look at right here. In your yellow box, the rectangle, it's going to tell you where your cursor is. So once it says 3, 0, to match the point that you're trying to plot, that's when you're going to tell it, yes, put a point there. Then I come over here and I say, okay, what's my next point? 0, -1. So go back to the origin and look, when I'm moving around my cursor, my line's going crazy. Just don't pay attention to the line. Go 0, which means my x is 0, so I don't go, look, my x is already 0. I need my y to be -1. So where do I need to go? Down 1. So look at the point that's in the yellow box. Does it match the point that you're trying to plot? Is it 0, -1? Since it is, you'll hit the button again to drop the point. Then you'll hit the save button and check your answer. Okay? So again, it'll tell me next question since I got it right. If you did want to rework another problem like that, go back to number 1 and click similar question to get more practice. You can do it as many times as you want. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now. Oh, there, stop sharing. Okay, now, so that's how we're going to use our calculator to find points to plot. Now, we're going to talk about some very specific kind of points. They're called intercepts. So if I have a graph, we'll just say my line looks like that. Not a very straight line, but we'll just pretend like it is. There's two important points on this graph that are called intercepts. Your X-intercept is going to be where this red line crosses through the X-axis. So on this particular graph, the X-intercept would be right there, right? That's where it crosses. Here's my X-axis. That's where the red line crosses through it, at that point. The Y-intercept, same concept. It's just where the line or the graph, whatever shape it is, crosses through the Y-axis. So on this particular red line, where the line crosses through the Y-axis would be right here, right? Here's my Y-axis. There's where the red line crosses through it, at that point right there. So let's talk about X-intercepts and Y-intercepts and what makes them lie where they lie. So looking at this red point, let's name its coordinates. Its X coordinate and its Y coordinate. Okay, if I'm looking at this point right here, it's going to have an X coordinate and a Y coordinate. Let's see, how did I get there? If I started at the origin, I would have had to go on to the right 1, 2, which means my X coordinate would have been 2. But look at what my Y coordinate would be. From this point, once I went to the right 2, I was there. I have not gone up or down at all to get there, right? If I'm still on the X-axis, the reason I'm on the X-axis is because my Y coordinate told me to not go up or down at all. What number tells me not to go up or down at all? A 0 would. So anytime you are an X-intercept, it is because your Y coordinate is 0. Your Y coordinate told you once you did your X move, You didn't go up or down at all from there. So you went ahead and dropped your point right where you were, which means that's what we're going to tell our calculator when we're trying to find X-intercept. I need to go and find out where is the Y 0. If the Y is 0, the X that you see that goes with it is where it crosses the X axis. And we'll see that in just a minute. Let's talk about the Y-intercept. So let's look at this point. Right? Here's where the red line crosses through my Y-axis. How did you get there? If you started at the origin, which is where you start to plot all points, let's see. Well, how did I get to this point? If I started here, the only move I made was up. 1, 2, 3. What coordinate tells you to go up 3? That would be your Y coordinate. What was your X coordinate? If you started at the origin and only went up, that means you didn't go to the left or right at all. What number in your X coordinate spot would tell you to not go left or right at all? If I'm here and I only go up, I don't go anywhere left or right, that is because my X coordinate is 0. So once again, that's what I'm going to look for if I'm trying to find my Y-intercept. I need to go find the point where the X is 0. So I'm going to do number 2. I'm going to show you how to find it mathematically by working it out. And then I'm going to show you how to just go in your calculator and find it. Number 2 says, now look at the difference between number 1 and 2's instructions. Number 1 just says, graph the equation by plotting points. And then it tells you the points to use. Number 2 says, graph the linear equation by finding and plotting its intercepts. That is telling you very specific. It doesn't want any point. It wants to know where does the graph cross the x-axis and where does the graph cross the y-axis. It only wants intercepts. So let's look at the equation of this line. X minus y equals -4. I need to find, it wants me to find the intercept, so I need to find the x-intercept, and I need to find the y-intercept of this line. So remember, at my x-intercept, what does it tell me that I know about my x-intercept? It's where the graph crosses through the x-axis, and it's also where y equals 0. So that's what I need to tell this equation to find the x-intercept. I need my y to be 0. So put a 0 in the y spot. If I do that, I'll have x minus, put a 0 in the y spot, equals -4. Solving for x, well that -0 is nothing. I could get rid of it by adding 0 if I wanted. So what does x equal? -4 plus 0 is -4. That's where it's going to cross through the x-axis at -4. Let's find the y-intercept. What do I know about the y-intercept? Well, I know it's where the graph crosses through this y-axis. I also know that it's where x equals 0. So that's exactly what you're going to tell this equation, that you want x to be 0 this time. Well, if x is 0, let's see, I'll have 0 minus y equals -4. Well, 0 is just nothing, but be careful. I still have -y equals -4. So y is not solved for yet. It's not by itself. I need to, that's like saying -1y. So to make it positive, I need to divide by -1 to cancel out the negative. So what does that make y equal? A negative over a negative, since I'm dividing, turns that to +4. So that's where it's going to cross the y-axis. So now I know the x-intercept is -4. I know the y-intercept is +4. So now I can plot those 2 points. So here's my x-axis. What does it say my x-intercept is? Where is it going to cross the x-axis? X-intercept going to cross the x-axis at -4. Here's my x-axis. I go find the -4 and put a point on it. Then I go and find my y-intercept. My y-intercept is +4. Here's my y-axis. So it's going to cross through the y-axis at +4. So my x-intercept, my y-intercept, connect them. There's your line. Now, if I wanted to put this in the calculator, there's some steps to that also. My equation, x minus y equals -4. The way you graph in the calculator, remember, is with this y equals button. Right? The y equals button is where you graph. But if I'm going to graph, I have to know what y equals. This right here, the way this is written doesn't show me y equals. It tells me x minus y equals. So if you're going to put this in the calculator, you've got to get the y by itself first, which means if I want this y by itself, I need to get rid of these 2 things. That's a positive x that I need to get rid of by subtracting x. I still have -y equals. Look at these 2 terms over here. It's hard to see because I got that glare. That I have a -x and a -4 that can't go together because they're not like terms. So you just have a -x and a -4 over here. Still getting y by itself. So remember, that's a -1 in front of that y. So I'm going to be dividing everybody on both sides by -1 to remove that. So now I have y equals let's see what happened over here. Negative over a negative turns that to positive x. Negative over a negative turns that to +4. So there's your y equals equation. Y equals x plus 4. So let's go to our calculator and type that in. So I'm at the y equals. Remember, this is your x button. X plus 4. Graph. Now, go to second table. There's all my buttons. There's all my points. Let's see. What does the X-intercept mean to do? I need to find where the Y is 0. So if I'm looking here, go over to your Y's and find out where it's 0 and look. What's the X that goes with that? -4, which is what we graphed over here, right? Where did it cross through the X-axis? -4. Where's the Y-intercept? The Y-intercept is the point where the X is 0. So if you go through and just scroll through, over here in your X's, look, there's your 0. So I'm going to come over here to my X's. There's my 0. Look at the Y that goes with it. That's your Y-intercept. +4. Where did this one cross the Y-axis? +4. So that's how you can use your calculator to do it. Okay, let's look at number 3. 3 is a good option for calculator, and I'll show you why. Y equals X minus 8. So if I'm going to graph this, and it says using intercepts, which means I need to find out where it's going to cross the X-axis and where it's going to cross the Y-axis. The reason I say this is a good calculator problem is look what's already solved for. It already says Y equals. Look at this one. I had to do some work on that one, right? The Y was not by itself. This one, the Y is by itself. That makes it an excellent candidate to just go straight to your Y equals, clear it out, and put in X minus 8. There's what it is. I'm going to hit the graph button. So let's see. It's going to cross the Y-axis down here. The bottom. It's going to cross the X-axis over here to the right. Now, I'm not necessarily, I can't exactly see where that is, but remember where you want to go to get points. Second table. So remember 2 things. X-intercept, Y-intercept. The X-intercept is where the Y is 0. So you'll come over here to the Y's. It looks like we're getting closer to 0. We're getting up to 0 over here. Just keep scrolling. There's -1. There's 0. What's the X that goes with it? +8. When Y is 0, X is +8. That tells me it's going to cross the X-axis at +8. Y-intercept. Where do I need to go in my table to find that? I need to go where the X is 0. So I'm in my X's. Let's go to where I'm getting to 0. It looks like I need to go up, right? Getting closer to 0 going this way. Well, there's where my x is 0. What's the y that goes with it? -8. So my y-intercept is all right, I don't know what happened. My Zoom stopped for some reason. Okay, so still going now. So let's see. The x-intercept is +8. The y-intercept is -8, which when we go back to our graph, doesn't that look like it matches what our graph is? It says the x-intercept is +8. So that means it should be to the right 8, which looks like that's where that is. The y-intercept is -8, which means it should be down 8, which looks like where that is. So that's exactly where you're going to put your points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Further, go to the right 8. Down 8. For the y-intercept. And then it's connecting them. Okay? Number 4. Two x plus 3y equals 9. So let's put this into y equals so we can put it in our calculator. Okay, we need to get used to solving for y anyway. We're going to do that several times. So let's solve for y. Get this y by itself, which means I need to get rid of 2x. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. So that 2x and -2x cancel. So now I'll bring down my plus 3y equals. Drop these two down. Drop down the -2x and the plus 9, right? I can't put those together because one's an x and one's not. So they're not like terms. So you're just bringing them down separately. -2x plus 9. And then I'm going to divide everybody by 3, right? To get rid of this 3 that's hooked onto the y. So y equals -2/3, that just doesn't reduce, x plus 9/3, that does reduce, right? When we're dividing, 9 divided by 3 is 3. So there's my y equals that I will take. Uh-oh, we're going to run into a problem here. Let's see. Let's do our y-intercept first. What is the y-intercept? What needs to be 0? The x needs to be 0. So if you'll notice, I'm on the x being 0. What's the y that goes with it? 3. So the y-intercept is going to be 3. It's going to cross through the y-axis at 3. Here's where we're running into a problem. Where's the x-intercept? Well, the x-intercept is where the y is 0. And look what happens. I go from +1 to +3.333 to negative. So what did it skip over? It went from the positives down into the negatives, which means it skipped over the 0. So I'm going to have to fall back on what I know in order to find the X-intercept. What does that mean? When we did the first one by doing it out mathematically, this means where the y is 0. So that's what you're going to put in. You're going to put the 0 in place of the y. So if I do that, I'll have 2x plus 3 times 0 equals 9. Three times 0 is nothing. I can just get rid of that. All I'm left with is 2x equals 9. So I've got to divide both sides by 2. So x equals 9 over 2, which doesn't reduce. Okay? So let's see. It's going to cross the y-axis at 3. That's the easy one to plot. So it's crossing, my y-intercept was 3. That's the one I could find in the calculator. That one was easy. I'm going to go put a point on the y-axis at positive 3. Now I can put a point on my x-intercept. 9 over 2. Where in the world is that on the number line? I've got to find 9 over 2 on my x-axis. What does 9 over 2 mean? That means 9 divided by 2. Punch that in your calculator. 9 divided by 2. 4.5. 4.5. That's what's going to tell you in a way to put it on the number line. Is just type the fraction. If it doesn't reduce to a whole number, type that fraction into your calculator to get the decimal, because it's easier to think about where that is on the number line. 4.5 would be right in the middle of 4. It's 4.5. So right in the middle of 4 and 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's 5. Here's 4, which means it's right in the middle of that. And then connect them. I'm going to do this one in Math Lab so that y'all can see what's going to happen there, how to graph that. Let's see, that's number 4. Yeah, this is going to happen the same thing. So I'm going to work this one. 4x plus 3y equals 9. All right, I'm going to stop sharing so y'all see me, and then I'll come back to in a minute and plot this. So 4x plus 3y equals 9. So let's say I'm trying to do this in my calculator, which means I'd want the y by itself, which means I have to subtract 4x. To get rid of the 4x, I still have 3y equals, over here I have a negative 4x and a positive 9. Remember, those are two terms that you can't put together. So negative 4x plus 9. Still getting y by itself, so I need to divide everybody by 3. So y equals negative 4 over 3 doesn't reduce, so I just have negative 4/3 x plus 9 over 3 does reduce. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So my hope is that I'm going to be able to find my x-intercept and my y-intercept in my calculator. So go to your y equals and clear it out. I have negative 4/3 x plus 3 that needs to go in my y equals. So open parentheses, negative 4 divided by 3, close. Because you know how I like to put my fractions in parentheses. X plus 3. So plus 3. So negative 4/3 x plus 3. Now I'm going to do my table. So second table. Now remember, where is your x-intercept? It's where the y is 0. So look at where I'm going over here to my y's, and I'm going to try to find where the y is 0. But look what happens between this y and that y. I go from positive numbers straight into negative numbers, skipping right over 0, which means I can't use my calculator for that. So for my x-intercept, I'm gonna have to do that on my own in just a minute. But can I find my y-intercept? Is there a point where the x is 0? Look at what I'm on right now. There's where my x is 0. What's the y that goes with it? 3. So there's my y-intercept. So I know it's going to cross the y-axis at 3. So that one's done. Now remember how to find this. Mathematically, doing it by hand, how do I find the x-intercept? Make the y 0. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a 0 in place of that y. So if I do that, I'll have 4x plus 3 times 0 equals 9. Remember, 3 times 0 is nothing. So 4x equals 9. Divide by 4, divide by 4. So x equals 9 over 4. If I type that in my calculator, 9 divided by 4, it gave me 2.25. So that's my x-intercept. So now I'm going to go back to sharing my screen and plotting those 2 points. I'm going to click to enlarge graph. I'm going to draw a line. So my first point, remember my y-intercept was the easiest. It was at positive 3. Now look, there's a bunch of little bitty hash marks here. So I'm going to go to where the y is 3. And look at the point in your yellow rectangle. Look at what the y is. It's 3. So that's where you're going to put your point. Now, remember my x-intercept was at 2.25. So let's go back down to the origin. Now look at, it goes in the increments that I need, 0.25. So I need to go past 2, right? I need to go to, there's 2, 2.25. Is that first hash mark past the 2? So now I'm at 2.25. So that's where you'll put your x-intercept and then save it. All right, so that one might be one that even though you get it right, you may want to do extra practice on that. All right, number 5. This one, number 5, it doesn't say use intercepts. If you look at number 5, it just says graph the equation by plotting points, which means I can use any points I want, which is great news. I don't have to use intercepts. I can use whatever I want. So the equation is y equals negative 2x. Doesn't tell me I need intercepts, and it's already got the y equals there for you. This is an excellent candidate for putting in your y equals on your calculator, right? If y is by itself, just take that to y equals. Go to y equals, clear it out. Look, your equation is just negative 2x. So that's what you're going to put. Make sure you put the negative, not the minus button. There's your negative 2. That's your x button. I always like to graph it just to see what it's going to look like in the end. So it should look just like that. Now that doesn't help me a bunch, because I have to find 2 points. Where do you get your points? Second table. Since I don't have to use intercepts this time, I can use any of these points I want. I just pick any 2 of them. I definitely, anytime I see this point, this one right here, 0, 0, I always choose that because it's the easiest point to plot. So I'm going to use that one, and then I'll just use the, it doesn't matter, I'll just use the one below it. So I'm going to plot those 2 points, 0, 0, and 1, negative 2. So all I'm going to do when I go to MATLAB to graph, my first point at 0, 0, here's what I like to plot in. It's just right there in the middle. I don't have to move anywhere. The next point is at 1, negative 2. So my x coordinate tells me to go to the right one since it's positive 1. My y coordinate tells me negative 2. So remember, you got to do your x movement and your y movement before you put a point. So I'm going to go to the right one and down 2 for the negative 2 and the y. Right 1, down 2. There's my second point. Once you draw that second point, MATLAB automatically will connect it for you. Again, excellent candidate for putting it in your calculator would be you can use any points, and the y is already by itself. You don't even have to get y by itself because it already is by itself. That's an excellent candidate for your calculator. Okay, let's look at number 2. Number 2 is kind of sneaky. I mean, number 6. Oh, we got number 2. Number 6. X equals 4. Well, this one's odd. Every graph that we've done so far has, in the equation, somewhere there's been an X and somewhere there's been a Y, right? We've had X's and Y's. This is a special kind of line. All it cares about in the whole world is that its X coordinate is 4. Let's see. This is a line. It's not just a point. It's a line. A point has an X coordinate and a Y coordinate. This is not a point. This is an equation. It's a whole line. All it cares about is that my X coordinate is 4. So let's go to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a point. Now start anywhere and go to, like if I start here, go to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Its X coordinate is 4. That one's X coordinate is 4. Right? Anytime you've gone to the right 4, I can even do it here. Look, where have I gone? Right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Its X coordinate is 4. What are the Y coordinates? You know what this equation says? It doesn't care. As long as the X coordinate is 4, it doesn't care what the Y coordinate is. Look what kind of line this makes. A vertical line. So all it cares about is the x coordinate being 4. Let's look at what this looks like in Math Lab. Number 6. So this one says x equals 6. I'm going to click to enlarge my graph. I'm going to go tell it that I'm about to draw a line. Now, look over here. That's the first place I'm going to think about of x being 6. Look at the point in your yellow rectangle. Is your x coordinate 6? If the answer is yes, then you put a point there. Go anywhere else. Is my x coordinate 6 in the yellow rectangle? It is. Put a point there. It's going to connect the line. It didn't matter where I went. As long as my x coordinate was 6, that was a point on the line. Look at your next one. So that would make a vertical line. No, I didn't check it. Okay. Number 7. Look at this equation. Negative 4y equals 20. What's missing in this equation? The x. It doesn't have an x. But in order to graph this before, remember the last one just said x equals 6, so I knew what x equaled. I need to know what y equals here. I know that negative 4y equals 20. Well, if negative 4y equals 20, I can find out real quick what y equals by dividing both sides by negative 4, since that negative 4 is hooked on. So I have y equals negative 5 when I divide that 20 by negative 5. So now I know what y equals. So since this one doesn't have an x involved, it doesn't care what x is. As long as your y is negative 5, you're a point on the line. So go tell it you want to draw a line. Let's see, where is y negative 5? Let's come down here to negative 5. That's where my y is negative 5. So put a point. Any point, look, what's y here? It's negative 2. What's y here? Positive 2. I need another point where y is negative 5. Look where I am right now. What is the y coordinate in my yellow box? It's also negative 5. I don't care what x is. X is 4.5. I don't care what x is. This just is only concerned with y's. Look what kind of line that makes. It makes a horizontal line. So where you can take to the bank on this, two things that you can take to the bank. If your equation is just x equals any number, it's going to be a vertical line, the one that goes straight up and down. At whatever that number is. No y's involved. If you have y equals any number, it's going to be a horizontal line, which is the one that goes straight, left, and right. So it's not going to have a slant. It's going to go straight, left, and right if it's y equals a number. This is no x involved. So those are two special lines. Okay? Number 7 comes in this form. It says negative 5y equals 15. Is there an x involved? Do you see any x's in this equation? No. Only y involved, which means it's going to be a horizontal line. I just need to find out where the horizontal line is going to be by finding what y equals. So divide it both by negative 5. So y equals 15 divided by -5, which is -3. So it's going to be a horizontal line. Remember, what kind of line is horizontal? This one that looks like this. Where's y? -3, down 3. There's going to be 1 point on the line. Anywhere else that is down 3, which means make it horizontal. Just go to the right a little bit and put another point. Make it horizontal. Okay, number 8, last one. X equals y minus 10. It says, describe what the graph of this equation will look like on the coordinate plane. It says, hint, rewrite the equation if necessary so that it's in a more recognizable form. We may or may not have to do that. Let's see. 5x equals y minus 10. Let's go ahead and rewrite it and put it in our y, make it y equals, and put it in our calculator and see which one of these, because this is a multiple choice. Got all that. We're going to have to match it up to which one it goes with. So let's solve this for y. Now remember, it doesn't matter what side of the equation y ends up on. It just needs to be by itself. Well, if I want this y right here to be by itself, the only thing that needs to go away is this minus 10. How do you make minus 10 go away? Add it. To get rid of that minus 10. So now the only thing I have on the right side is my y. Over here I've got a 5x and a plus 10. You cannot put those together. I can't stress that enough. That is not 15x. This is not an x at all. It's just a 10. Those are completely separate terms. You just have a 5x and a plus 10. There's your y equals. It doesn't matter that y is on the right. Y still equals what? 5x plus 10. So let's go put that in our y equals. Five x plus 10. Let's graph it. See what it looks like. All right. So the first thing A says is what? The graph passes through the origin, 0, 0. It also passes through the points 2, 0, and 0, 10. Well, let's see. The first thing it says is that it passes through the origin, which is 0, 0. Look at your graph. Where's the origin? Where's 0, 0? Right there. Does this line pass through it? No, it doesn't pass through it. If it did, you'd see it going straight through it. It does not pass through the origin 0, 0. That's going to help me out a lot. Anything that says passes through the origin is not it. So it's not A, right? It doesn't pass through the origin. Look what B says. It also says it passes through the origin. So it's not A, not B. Look at what C says. The graph is a vertical line. What's a vertical line? It's one that goes straight up and down. This one doesn't go straight up and down. It slants. So it's not C. D says the graph is a line with a X-intercept -2 and a Y-intercept 10. So it's saying the X-intercept is at -2, 0. That means it's crossing through the X at -2. It says the Y-intercept is at 0, 10, which means it crosses through the Y-axis at +10. Let's look at this. Look where it crosses through the x-axis. Here's my x. To the right. 1, 2. So that is where it crosses. It crosses at +2. So the x-intercept is right. It's at negative. Not right. I'm looking at it backwards. Sorry. Left. 1, 2. So it crosses through the x at -2, right? Which is where it says it should. The next thing it says is it also has a y-intercept at 0, 10. So let's look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If I'm confused, if I'm not 100% sure, where can you go? Second table. Let's see. Look where the y is 0. Look at the x, -2, which means it crosses through the x-axis at -2. So that one's right. Look where the x is 0. Where does it cross through the y? +10, 0, 10. So that is right, which means that is why it is D. The graph is a line with x-intercept at -2 and y-intercept at 10. Okay? Now, I know this is a long section with lots of stuff to do. You may have to pause me several times. Go to Math Lab, do a lot of similar questions. Please email me with any questions that you have, and I can set up a personal Zoom with you and go back and forth with any questions that you have.